Hi guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Snap, and if you were to meet me out in the wild, you'd probably notice a few things straight away about me, aside from sweating in the heat. You would probably notice straight away that I love my anime. You would probably also notice, if I don't outright say it, that I adore my cats. Can you sort of see? Well, I ain't flashing my boobies up. You will also more than likely see me with one of these babies, because Mama likes her caffeine. But what you may not know about me, at least what you may not automatically realise, is that I'm disabled. It's a fun fact really to lead on. And this, of course, I've got my walking stick in hand. You won't realise that straight away. No you're not. No you're not. Bruh, you're not even disabled. Not all disabilities are visible. What does it mean to be disabled anyway? And that's why I'm doing a video today. Apologies if I'm sweating at all. It is boiling in here. I've tried my best to get rid of it, but oh, it might actually help if I've got the bloody fan on the go. Cheese and rice. No wonder it's boiling in here. Guys can't hear it too much. Yeah, hopefully that's a bit better. I'm sorry, Nezu. Why didn't you tell me? But what does disability even mean? It's a conversation that I've had with myself and others on several occasions, and not just piss poor acting. It is, in my opinion, a brilliant opportunity to learn and grow. I mean, conversations in general help us to learn and grow from each other. In my opinion, it's a good conversation to be had. You know, if anything, we can use it to work towards progressing in terms of equal rights for those with disabilities and making things more accessible, well, for all of us really. We're all going to face bad health at one point, we're all going to face ill health at one point, we're all going to need a hand at one point, and the only way we're going to be able to work all that out is if we have the conversations now and continuing on through. But one such example I had of a conversation, it was perhaps some point last year now with a friend of mine, and the friend he's a lovely guy, you know, not him at all, and you know, he's comfortable enough that he obviously knows my health problems and stuff. As we was chatting away to him, I can't remember what the reason was for it being brought up in the first place, but we were discussing my health and mentioned that I was disabled, or I'd be considered disabled. And he goes, "Well, you're not disabled." I'm like, looking him up and down. "Well, what do you mean I'm not disabled?" "Well, you're not." And I'm like, "Are all disabilities having to be visible then?" "Well, no." "What do disabilities mean in your head?" And after about 5 seconds, the cogs started whirring, and he was like, oh yeah, actually, you could be considered, yeah. I mean, I kind of also had the walking stick at the time, so I can't even say it was completely invisible, but I think it's that friend blindness of also that automatically assumption that disability is a bad thing and calling somebody disabled is a bad thing, which it's not. It's just an identifier like anything else. But I think that assumption of it being a bad thing perhaps stops us from identifying it in those that are close to us, and it certainly, at least in my case, stopped me from identifying it within myself. Nez, are you coming up? Come on. My cat wants in on this. I mean, to be fair, they're going to be the stars of the show anyway. I had attempted to film this yesterday, and at one point I was hit with the pitiful cries of my other cat, Nanny. Come on, you. Come on. This one's a bit more of a people lover. And that's the politest way I can put it. And is in constant need of attention, aren't you, baby girl? Aren't you? You were asleep when I started recording, and now you woke up. It's as if you knew. Come on. I bet you now you've picked now to try and sit on my lap because the Amazon delivery guy is about to be here. Anyway. So, there are different definitions around disability, and there are different schools of thought, different models that we can use. But as something to go from, something to base this video on, or base the continuing of a conversation from, let's look under the Equality Act 2010. The Equality Act is a piece of UK legislation. It's designed, so I presume other countries may or may not have something that's similar, but in the UK it's a piece of Amazon. Nezu is now more interested with the packages on the floor. Now to keep her entertained for a bit. So, the Equality Act 2010 is a piece of UK-based legislation. Is a piece of UK-based legislation that centres around protecting those from protecting people from being discriminated on the basis of a protected characteristic. What is a protected characteristic? There's like 9 in particular. Disability is one of them. That's the relevant one we're going to be discussing. But I'll put a little list up here so, I'm not completely pulling it out of my ass. But the one I want to focus on is disability. Now, under the Act, and I'll try again get this word for word, but I will also put it up here for the same purposes of not wanting to pull it out my backside. Disability under the Act is defined as a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial and long-term adverse impact on an individual's day-to-day life, carrying out day-to-day activities. What does that mean? Because it kind of sounds clear-cut, but then when you start looking at it even further, it's not necessarily physical or mental impairment. There are some impairments, there are some conditions that automatically are considered disability. They automatically qualify under the Act, no question about it. HIV status, cancer and multiple sclerosis. In general though, it's not so much the condition that you're diagnosed with, but it's the symptoms or the effects of the condition on the individual. In my case, for example, and I will go into a bit more detail in just a sec, but I have endometriosis, and with endometriosis it affects everybody differently. Some people may experience little to no pain and it's just being found out by happenstance or through something else. Others may experience crippling pain. Just because you have the endometriosis doesn't mean you're disabled. It would be the pain that disables you, or makes you considered disabled, if that makes sense. Yeah, but I will link a video to the Equality and Human Rights Commission. Again, it's UK based. I will link a video which discusses this in a bit more detail. But yeah, the other terms we need to have a look at, substantial. It's kind of, I could probably pull out a thesaurus. Well, I would if I owned one. I could probably pull out my phone and find a thesaurus on there and look up the various synonyms that match substantial, but in general, it's anything that's not just a mild inconvenience that you can kind of ignore and just go about your day. Long term. Now, this is the one that kind of tripped me up a little bit because I've heard I've heard different things being said by other laws, perhaps in other countries, or through other definitions, but at least under the Equality Act, long term refers to 12 months plus. It's going to last for 12 months plus. So yeah, substantial, long term, the day-to-day activities. Again, it's a bit more like common sense, but you wouldn't automatically think, if that makes sense, but it's what you do on a day-to-day. It's things like getting up in the morning, getting yourself dressed, getting yourself washed, making yourself food, eating, getting yourself out and about the place, working, shopping for your food, shopping for the bits and pieces, tidying up around the house, and even down to socialising and mixing out in the general public and blah de blah de blah blah. It's not just the you absolutely needs to, it's also the wants to, because it's anything that impacts our quality of life. You know, it doesn't just consider the bare basics of living. Doesn't just consider like the bare basics of living. Like, it looks at it a bit more holistically. So how could I apply this to myself? This is where we get a little bit personal. I mean, I suppose that's the whole point of this channel, really, but to be open and to have the conversation and to not be burping every fucking 5 minutes. Jeez and Royce, that's bad. Well, in terms of impairments, I won't list them all because there are some I don't particularly want to talk about, but the ones that I do feel comfortable, I've mentioned the endometriosis, fibromyalgia and IBS. The things that seem to affect me more are the endometriosis and the fibromyalgia, or at least they're the ones I consider more disabling to me because it results in me being in constant pain. And for the endo, I mean, I try and like separate it in my mind into two sort of distinct categories of pain, but realistically it all kind of intertwines with each other. But with the endometriosis, it's a lot of pelvic pain, lower back pain, pain down the thighs, pain in other areas, and other bits and pieces, like prior to the Mirena coil, prior to having the Mirena coil inserted, I would struggle massively on my period, not just in terms of the heaviness, but also the pain. And also the pain in the week before and the pain the week afterwards. It wasn't pleasant. In terms of the fibromyalgia side of things, that one's a bit more varied in terms of symptoms, but a lot of it is related to joint pain. I feel a lot of it I feel it in multiple areas. Like, I feel it in pretty much all of my joints. The ones that are really annoying to me are the ones in sort of my hands, my wrists, my fingers, these things, these tools that I need for day-to-day life. But it's not just that, it's also things like brain fog, where it feels like a literal fog has just descended upon my mind. I almost feel like I say it like I'm floating in space, or just floating in general. Almost feels a little bit like of not within my own body, almost like, I describe it a bit like and this isn't all the time, this is only on like the odd occasion, but almost like I'm a marionette and I'm pulling the strings up it. It's weird. But there's brain fog, there's that, and there's also the fatigue side of it. It's a combination of the conditions, the medications that I'm on, and I think the symptoms themselves. Because quality of sleep isn't necessarily great when you're in pain all the time, and the medications I'm on are also have the side effects of causing tiredness, causing fatigue. yeah. And then, of course, when those two things are flaring up, as I've dealt with recently with having the Marina coil out and then getting, between that period of Marina coil coming out and then it going back in, I was experiencing none too pleasant flare-ups of the IBS, which stands for irritable bowel syndrome, and you can probably work out what that involves on the basis of the name alone. But suffice to say, Mama might need instant access to a toilet. I mean, it could well be the Rocky Mountains or it could be a landslide. I don't know. It's whichever it feels like on the day.
Oh my God in heaven, I can't believe it. It only gets worse when you get older.
There's no paper.
What?
Oh, that was a delightful way of describing it, wasn't it? Yeah. One of the things I forgot to mention when I was discussing the definition of the Act, and again it mentions it in the video that I'll link with the Human Rights Commission. When looking at the impairments, it doesn't look at it as when you're on medication for the impairment. It would be, or when you're not receiving treatment, it would be how you would be without any treatment, without any medication, without anything like that, how you would just be day to day and how it would impact. Now, for me, without treatment, I would struggle. I struggle anyway with treatment, but I can live a somewhat normal, like, everyday, whatever the hell normal means. So, with treatment and with the medication I'm on and with the use of the walking stick and other bits and pieces, I can live, I can get through life. I can work. I can, do my best to try and, I can do a bit, I can do more. Whereas I can do more and, live my life. But without those treatments, without that medication, there would just be no way. There would just be no way. It's a case of managing it. It doesn't completely take it away. It's just managing. It just makes it easier to manage overall, if that makes sense. There isn't a cure as such for these conditions. It's going to go on. I mean, it has gone on for more than 12 months. I was diagnosed with the endometriosis back in 2016. Yeah, back in October 2016, I think, yeah. And the fibromyalgia was just a few years ago as well. Oh, yeah, that's a while back now. I think the fibromyalgia may have been at some point in 2019 or 2020. Yeah, anyway. Those have gone on longer than 12 months and will be expected to carry on for longer than 12 months. Just gotta manage it. This definition, at least in my completely unqualified opinion, because I am no doctor, I am no legal or medical expert, I am just somebody with a camera and access to internet. But yeah, in my completely unqualified opinion, this definition seems to align more with the medical model of disability. In the medical model of disability, the focus is more on the individual, and it seems to be that it's the impairment that causes the disability, which differs in another model that I will mention. But the focus, the thinking is that it's the impairment that causes the disability, and then stemming from that, rather than having as much of a focus on mainstream accessibility to sort of mainstream services, the focus is more on providing individual specialist support. The problem with the medical model is that by using the impairment for the basis of the disability, the emphasis is then more on compensating for or trying to fix the impairment, and therefore trying to fix the individual, which can kind of come with its own sort of issues regarding self-esteem and mental health issues. And not everybody as well sees their, I will use the word impairment, but they may not even view it as an impairment. The point is, not everybody feels as though they have something to be fixed. This is where the social model of disability is perhaps a bit more useful. In contrast, the social model of disability, rather than looking at the individual and the impairment as the disability, it puts the reason for the disability on the barriers presented by society. These barriers could be, for example, in terms of the physical sense, a lack of ramps for wheelchair access or lack of access to disabled toilets. It could also be on the basis of societal attitudes as well. It could be barriers presented as a result of societal attitudes. It's the accessibility to mainstream services, or rather the lack thereof, that is considered the disability. It's those barriers that are in place that are preventing access to mainstream services that is considered the disability. It's this model that's becoming more popular. I've noticed it a fair bit with UK-based disability rights charities. Again, when I emphasise in UK-based, because that's what I've researched, because it's where I'm from. But if you happen to watch this video and you happen to be from another area of the world, please do tell me. And if you've got any idea of which model is perhaps more popular where you're from, and even your own opinions in general, I'll be happy to hear, because conversation is a good thing. Now, again, emphasising my unqualified status, in my opinion, and because I'm unqualified, take it with a massive pinch of salt.
すいません。白い粉の棚ってどこですかね?
I can see some benefits with both models of thinking, with both schools of thought. I personally identify a lot with the medical model, and that's me personally. I certainly wouldn't apply it to everybody, but the reason why I say me personally is that I don't see me as being needing to be fixed as such. I see that I have got health problems, and it's those health problems that I wish could be fixed. They can't be fixed. But the symptoms, for me, it's the pain that I'm in that causes a lot of, or it's the pain that I'm in that has a fairly significant factor in my disability, or at least disability in my experience. Again, it's not the same for everybody. I would never argue that it was the same for everybody. But for me, having the pain and dealing with that pain, or physically feeling it, is more disabling than anything else. But again, as well, I see the benefits with the social model of disability. The fact that the focus is on the barriers that are in place, and for a large majority of, those who are disabled, and even in my own life, like, the barriers that are in place can and do have that are a significant contributing factor to disability. I can see that even with myself, even with identifying identifying somewhat with the medical model. That's why I kind of am pulling from both a bit. But I do see the social model as being a lot more advantageous in terms of progression, if that makes any sense, because it focuses on society as a whole rather than seeing the individual as the individual as the problem. We still need to consider individuals, but disability is a huge spectrum. It encompasses a load of different things. And because of it being such a wide spectrum, I do think individualistic support is necessary in a lot of cases. Maybe not all, but certainly in a fair amount of cases that I can think of. But that doesn't mean that we should completely follow that school of thought and ignore the fact that there are barriers for, again, the majority of disabled people. There are massive benefits for everybody, not just those who form the disability community now, but for everybody, for all members of society. As we grow older, you know, we're all going to encounter health problems, we're all going to encounter something, you know. And not only do I recognise the benefits of the mainstream becoming more accessible, again, I agree that not everybody does view their impairments, for want of a better phrase, as impairments. They don't view themselves as having something that needs to be fixed. But as I've said, I would love to hear more about how other people view disability, about how other people view these different models, and if there's any other models out there that I, haven't mentioned or haven't even thought of, looping right back to the beginning of this video with that conversation I had with that friend, who I stress is awesome person, no disrespect to him whatsoever, and he didn't mean any disrespect by you. So looping right back to the beginning of the video, conversations are important and they are necessary for us to have any sort of progression in terms of disability rights or equal opportunities, just improving things overall as a society. So on that note, if you would be so inclined as to leave a comment below, not only giving your opinions on the topic of this video, but also the video itself. If you can provide any feedback, that would be grand. Lord knows I could do with it. If you like the video, please give it a like, the thumbs up, whatever the hell that thing is. If you don't like it, give it a dislike, boo. But if you feel the need to be persuaded, feel the need to be swayed in towards giving it a like, think of the cats. And I will show videos here just to try and sway you more to the dark side. Yeah, if you would like to hear from me in the future, please subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, guys. Have a good day. And take care of yourselves. Stay alive, stay hydrated, don't melt in this heat. All the other good things in life. Take care. Bye.
Hello, baby. I'm just watching to see how this goes.